And a break me kind of goal when I had the 45 to lose would be 80 pounds because I'd be like hospitalized. I'd be too thin. Maybe I'd even die. I don't know. But so it's got to be that balance of pushing you and actually achieving what you're trying to achieve. Don't worry about breaking it down into smaller pieces. We'll get there in a minute. But not so much that, like, you know, you don't go from $1 million to $1 billion the next year. Like, you know, that's just stupid. Unless you're like selling cocaine or something, you're not going to get there. I was just watching Narcos before we talked, so maybe that's why I thought of that. And then so you get your goals, and for me, you know, it was the 45 pounds. Another one was my job situation was not long-term sustainable because there was too much politics. The company had changed since the founder passed away, and I didn't want to be a part of that. So I had to do some very specific things, you know, networking and work on my resume, all that kind of stuff. I had to start to turn the wheels to get a new job situation going. And the last thing for me was I had to deal with the anxiety from the divorce. It was when I was a little kid. I never dealt with it. I didn't even understand it until I was probably like 25, 26. And it started when I was like 4. So I needed to find a way to make that happen. So those were 3 really big life-impacting things I needed to shift. And I put specifics around them, specific time frames, and I was going to track the hell out of them to make sure I did them. So those are my goals. Now, that's all well and good. The last piece is how you actually execute, and I mentioned this is do a day. And so do a day, there's 2 key words. One is do, and one is day. So do is a verb. So you don't just like sit there and wish for it and then it happens, or you just wait for it. Like, you have to get up every day and do something proactively in pursuit of your goals. You want to lose weight? You're going to get up today. It doesn't matter whether you did it yesterday or not. Get up today, go exercise. And when it comes to each of your food choices at meals or in between or whatever, you're going to make a choice that's more aligned with where you're trying to get to. And that's it, every single day. And you don't need to worry about how many more days you have to go, and you don't have to worry about whether you did it yesterday, you did extra yesterday, so you can cheat today. Yesterday's not happening right now, and tomorrow's not happening right now. You only ever have that second word, day, is about right here, right now. So you free yourself from the judgment and the longing of the past, you know, judgment of the bad and longing for the good that you've lost. And you free yourself of the fear and anxiety and anticipation of all the future. You know, when I lost that first pound, I still had 99 to go, which is just as daunting as 100 pounds was. I can tell you that as a fact. It doesn't matter. You know, you're climbing a mountain. You don't just step from the beginning of the trail up to the top. It doesn't matter how more steps you got to take. You're just taking the next step right now. So every day you wake up and you do what you have to do in that day and only in that day in pursuit of those goals. And then it just kind of becomes second nature because you're actually living your life proactively. It's not happening to you. You're not an employee of it. You don't just work there. You understand what makes you tick. You don't have all this internal baggage that's been screwing you up that you just couldn't even face. You're a real human being that people want to be around, and or at least the people that you should be associating with want to be around you. And then you like this stuff just starts to happen. I mean, there's so many things I've done that I was like, oh, that never happened to me. I'd never do that. And it's like I almost can't stop it, which sounds kind of stupid, but it's just reality. Like, opportunities come and I grab them because I can and because they're right in front of me. And that's not the way my life was. Either the opportunities presenting themselves or me going after them. None of that used to happen. So I do believe, like, when you're someone who achieves and you know what the hell you're doing and why you're doing it, this stuff starts to really, really click, and it's additive. Like, the more you win, the more you win.
Yeah, no, big time, man. That last point especially really hits home. Like, the guys who listen to the show especially, I talk about this all the time. We have some of the best, most proactive guys, I think, out there as far as podcast audience goes. Like, the listenership of this show is incredible. I get emails all the time from guys. Yeah, I get emails all the time. In the Facebook group, our Elite Man Mastermind group on Facebook, we have guys talking every single day, multiple guys talking about some of the awesome breakthroughs they're having and some of the huge actions they've taken in their life and all the goals they're reaching. Just one kick-ass story after the next. So it really makes a lot of sense to me when you get some of these things down, when you get the self-love, the meaningful goals, the execution, which is really the final piece to this whole thing, is, you know, making sure that you're actually going out and doing things every day. It makes sense that doors, opportunities, life opens up to you, and you just start thinking and going through life in a different way. And it just, everybody, when you get this shit down, your life completely changes and you become that type of man or that type of woman even that has the life they want. They're just making shit happen. Like you said, every single day. Every day is a new day. You put one foot in front of the next. If you're climbing a mountain, you don't look up and see the top of the mountain and think you're screwed. You have to do this for X amount of time and you're never going to get to it. It's just one day at a time. But as you get through it, as you walk through, you're taking those steps, you realize that it's a lot easier and things just become easier. Things fall into your lap almost. And so many doors, so many opportunities open up in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, too, that you mentioned as far as self-love goes, I thought this is kind of funny, too. It's so accurate. Like, we reward society. We pride ourselves in not being good at something or having it shittier than the next person. I remember just, kind of thinking back when you said that when I was younger, like in probably 7th, 8th grade. I was always like one of the smarter kids in the class, like in the honors classes and gifted classes, things like that when I was younger. But I remember as I got to like a certain age, it wasn't like cool to be smart anymore. Like people thought it was like, the dumber kids in the class or the kids that acted up were like the popular kids. And so like I remembered from that point forward for like the next 3 or 4 years, instead of being like the smart kid who got all hundreds on his tests or got A's in the classes, I slowly transitioned into being like the punk asshole kid who got in trouble and who always is, getting detentions and suspensions and things like that. And I don't know, for some reason that hit home and came to mind. It's like such a wrong mentality to have as far as life goes. And, for kids, I mean, you can easily fall into that trap, but adults fall into it too. You talked about the whole sleeping thing with, sleeping 3-4 hours a night and priding yourself in that. But we all fall into the trap from time to time of thinking that like, the harder we have it or like the dumber we are, like that self-deprecating humor kind of thing. It's just, it's a bad trap to fall into. And I think it sets the standard for having a lot of bad or poor habits for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just thinking as you're saying that, I have an elementary school kid and thinking about bullies, and the bullies are always the most popular kids. Mm-hmm. Like, why the hell is that?
It's not right.
I want to go and beat them up. I swear, I'm like, I could take him. He's 9.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no kidding, man. Yeah, I know. I wish there was some way to just, get rid of bullies, that there was like some kind of younger police code of good kids that could just kick their ass for us or something.
Yeah. Well, it's like the way is to not have broken parents. Like every single kid who's been an ass to my son, their parents are complete asses.
Yeah.
Or there's some major dysfunctions. Like maybe the parents aren't asses, but like one of them, the parents were actually fine. They were getting divorced and it was kind of messy. Mm-hmm. And so like they weren't treating their kids like crap. They weren't bad role models, but like the kid was hurting inside. And I totally got that. And I said to his dad, I was like, look, I was him. I understand. That doesn't mean that my kid needs to pay a price for that. So you got to help him. But for a lot of these kids, like their parents are just kind of pricks. It's not a surprise that the kid is too. So as parents, like we have a huge, like I write about this in the book, like you're responsible for a life. You're crafting a human being, and that human being is out there in the world and needs to fend for itself. But it's also going to go on, and most likely it's going to be responsible for other lives and crafting other human beings. Do you want them to all be a bunch of little shits? Like, there's a responsibility to this. We got to step up, and we got to be better parents. We got to be present, and we got to care, and we got to show the right values. And I wasn't off the deep end before my wife got sick, but I was not role modeling what my son needed because I was pissed off, riddled with anxiety, and I was just constantly like angry about what I had to do, how much was hitting me, and whether it was at work or at home. And I just took that out on everyone. I was like, this little boy doesn't need that while watching his mother die. Like, what kind of, it's just not acceptable. So the quick solution is, we need some kind of superhero to just go beat the shit out of them. But that would be wrong for me to say out loud. Long term, what we actually need is, like, we as parents need to do a much better job. And at least in my house, that's what we're doing. We can take our own responsibility.
Yeah. No shit, man. No shit. I 100% agree. Like, I think that's really the biggest thing, the biggest factor in determining our future is the way we parent our children. And, bullying is one aspect of that for sure, but there's so many different aspects too as well that go into obviously parenting a child and teaching them the ways of life, the right way to do things, the moral code of things, and just being a good person as they get older. Like, you look at kids and going back generations. I was actually talking about this a couple episodes ago on the podcast of the way we're conditioned as children, like by our parents. We pick up, even if we don't even realize it, we pick up on so many things that our parents do, and that becomes a part of our personality, a part of our behavior. We live it, like what we kind of mentioned it as well earlier, like we live at these things that happened to us earlier and lead into different emotions and things like that. But even just the personality-wise, the way that our parents are, the way they act, the way they behave around us, we subtly pick up on those things as we get older, and that becomes a part of us. And especially even grandparents and siblings and people like that are around our lives all the time. We pick up on little bits and pieces of that, and that shapes us into who we are and who we become as adults. It's just you better be fully aware, fully present of how you are around children. And I think it's one thing to have a good time with them and be playful and all that stuff. That's obviously great, and you need that just as much. But it's also another thing to be fully cognizant of just some of the things that you may inadvertently be conditioning them into saying or being or in that sense, like being fully aware of how you act around them, because it's going to, whether you want it or not, whether you specifically say it aloud, the things that you do, the behaviors you display is absolutely going to be transferred onto children.
Yeah, I mean, they're just sitting there watching you with eyes wide open and looking up to you, so it's your choice what you want to do with that.
Yeah, 100%, man. Brian, was there any other aspect to the formula you have here for making sure every day is just epic and better than the day before it?
So this is where some people don't like my book and some do. I'm not a like, here's the workbook, here's exactly what you do in every situation and it all works out. I'm like, let me tell you my story in a bunch of different situations, and through me recounting that, I think you'll get some inspiration to see how it matches to your life. And then I've got the chapters on self-love and motivation and goal setting, and then I've got a couple of specific themes where I do lay it out a bit more exactly, and one of them is on getting more physically fit, like physically active, and the other is on the diet side. Like, I'm vegan now, so a lot of people have had conversations with me about that, mostly to make fun of me for it, but it's okay. But so I hit those specifically, and then the last chapter is just kind of rapid fire. Here's like, I forget how many, there might be like 10 or 12 different specific examples, and I just give a quick little like, here's how you could do it. The point of the book is you go through the book, and it's not super long. You read the book, you should come away, you've got things you can do to figure yourself out, and you can do that on your own. You can reach out to me to help you with that. I've got an exercise online that helps you with it, or you can hire a coach, some other way to get there. But you should have enough of an inspiration to be able to put it into action. That means the book's not for everybody. Some people are like, I was looking for my 12 steps and you didn't give it to me. I'm like, that's cool, man. There's other books that do that. That's just not my style. Like, I'd rather share my experiences with you and hear what yours are, and let's try to work through it together. But I think we hit on the specific ones that I talked about. And the thing is, if I laid it out really specifically, I'm not going to hit everything. And what I really don't want to do is, let me ask you something. Do you know anybody's phone number? Or is it mostly like their phone number is swipe, 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 tap? Like, you got to go, you know what I mean?
I know maybe 3 people's phone numbers in the entire planet.
When I was growing up, before phones were invented and we had no electricity, in this time called the 80s, you had to know people's phone number, or you had a phone book.
The ancient days, correct.
Yeah. So, I call it like the phone number problem, or like the GPS problem. The early days of GPS, this woman drove her Mercedes SL off a bridge in England because the thing said turn right. And of course it meant turn right at the end of the bridge. But she's like, hey, it said turn right. So she drove it into like a little brook. You have to be willing to put your mind into it. You're not gonna figure yourself out if you don't put the mind into it anyway. So I don't want to tell you exactly like turn exactly here and turn exactly there. I want you to exercise your brain. Mm-hmm. So that's not just a cop-out for not spelling it out.
No, dude, it makes a lot of sense.
It's a mental exercise. If you want it to really work, you got to put in the work and figure it out.
It makes a lot of sense. And the other thing, too, is that everybody's different. So, I mean, you give So, I mean, something that works for you. Maybe you did do 25 steps or 12 specific steps or whatever it was, and it worked for you and changed your life. But everybody's different. You know, not everyone's going to be able to follow those exact steps to the T and get the exact same result. But I think the basic guideline of what you have is very solid and very applicable to a number of people for sure.
Yeah.
Real quick.